much, Sarah, for joining us today. I am very excited to have this conversation with you. I myself have dabbled with meditation on and off for about maybe 6 years now. Um, and I've seen a lot of peace that has come with it for me in different forms. But it's very, very difficult to practice and we kind of get swept in different ways with life. But I'd love to hear about you and what sound healing is, because that's something that I've never done. And I'm excited to hear how this can kind of be added on into my practice. So my first question to you is, firstly, what is sound bath? And how does it work as a therapeutic and restorative practice for the mind and body?
Well, since you began with meditation, I'll begin with meditation and how sound healing and sound therapy can be connected to meditative practices. Now, with meditation, as you're familiar, there is always a point or multiple points of focus, whether you are reciting mantra or focusing on the breath or listening to the voice of someone guide your focus, or you're looking at a candle, right? These are all examples of different points of focus for meditation. So, a lot of people find that challenging. It can put a lot of pressure on the practitioner to say, you must focus on this candle, you must focus on your breath, and it can feel challenging for people. And so sound, and in a sound bath, the sound can provide multiple points of focus to sort of entertain or charm or keep your mind occupied,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And when it's done with this intention, when the sound is introduced and played with this intention, it can actually help to facilitate guiding you into a meditative and relaxed state.
So are you saying it's post listening to the to this sound that gets you into this state, or is it during the whole process of listening to the sound?
Yes. Yeah, not to confuse things, but yes, I mean, silence is a part of the experience too. And so typically in the sound baths that I facilitate, there is a guiding of awareness to become aware of the body, of the breath, of how you're listening. So it
Mm-hmm.
helps give people context as to
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen. And then I would stop talking and stop guiding and begin to introduce different sounds. Now, your role as a sound bather practitioner is to simply keep guiding your attention back to the sound and back to your listening, because our all of our minds will tend to be all over the place, and our to-do lists and all the things that all of us think about, but you keep gently guiding your awareness back to the sound. And then there is silence. And the silence is really like a settling. It's a moment of integration when things psychologically, emotionally, physically have a chance to reorganize in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, and settle. And so in that place, you might also uh, be able to access a meditative state. Um, some people become so relaxed that they fall asleep after a sound bath, but then generally, depending on what happens next, it would guide people back out of the experience.
Mm-hmm. So you said earlier that this is a different form of meditation, like, watching the flame of a candle or focusing on your breath and those kind of things. How is this different, and how is it, I wouldn't say better, but how is it? I don't know what you would say about it, but how is it different and how is it beneficial?
I think it can be more accessible to people. I think there are a lot of myths around meditation of having to, sit a very particular way or hold your hands in mudra a particular way, or recite something that is foreign to you, that you don't understand. But I feel that the simplicity of focusing on listening is more accessible to people. And in a sound
Mm-hmm.
bath, generally people are invited to lie down, to be comfortable. I feel that being able to have a comfortable posture in the body also makes a meditative experience more accessible to people. Um, or not having to get on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I also work with a lot of people, with disabilities or older people, or veterans, or people who are not comfortable lying flat on the floor or sitting in a cross-legged position, can sit in a chair, can sit on the couch, can
Mm-hmm.
be comfortable and still be able to access the benefits of the experience.
Before we get into it a little bit more, I'd love to hear how you got into sound healing and sound bathing and what your story is like.
Yeah, it's as most of our stories are, begins at the beginning, which I'll kind of, skip around, and it's kind of a pretty winding journey. But what I can say in reflection back is that music and sound have always played a very important role in my life first as a musician and an artist, and in my childhood, it was always a way that I connected with my family, through music and sound, uh, and ultimately it became part of how I was able to express my emotions as an artist and as a musician. Um, and then I began to draw the connections towards the healing aspects of sound and how it could impact me, personally. So I suffered a pretty traumatic accident in my early 20s. I was working as an artist in New York City, and the floor collapsed of my
Oh my
studio,
God.
and I broke my back in four places. And before that, I mean, it is like kind of a a pretty dramatic moment, yes, but a moment that was really pivotal to guide me in a different direction. Before that, I had very little awareness of my own body and how I was caring for it until I was sort of forced to pay attention to it,
Mm-hmm.
for the need to get out of pain. And so it was at that time, which was about 20 years ago, when in New York City, it wasn't so easy to find
Mm-hmm.
acupuncture, and things like that. Wasn't as mainstream, but I was looking and trying whatever I could get my hands on, or whoever could put their hands on me. And then ultimately, I got to a place where I felt like, oh, I'm relying on all of these people, all of these amazing practitioners and healers who are putting their hands on me. But I feel like I need something that I can tap into and access on my own to feel a little bit more empowered, in my own healing process and my own recovery. And so, very reluctantly, I started trying yoga, and trying meditation, and I was pretty skeptical and pretty resistant to the practice, to these communities that I didn't feel like I belonged. Um, but I felt that these things were helping me in my body, helping me tap into a connection to the trauma of a sudden accident. And so it was through that practice that I started to really make the connection between my mind and my body, and how important seeing those connections are in recovery and healing. And so I started teaching.
Yeah.
But because I felt like it's you kind of have to, right? Is once you make these revelations for yourself, or this is how I felt anyway, and this is how I feel kind of like all my best teachers are, is you can't help but share that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge with other people. You say, oh, I was very skeptical too. I know you're rolling your eyes. That was me. I know. And I felt like I had maybe had the ability to reach some people that were like me, and say, these things can really be helpful. These are really powerful tools, and they really helped me, and this is how they helped me. Um, and that's kind of how it began. And I slowly started to integrate sound back in to my offering as a teacher to make it even more accessible, to take it out of the yoga studio actually.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was a barrier for entry. Oh, I need to wear a certain thing. I need to be able to touch my toes or do these crazy postures. And, so I started to say, no, I think we can do this in other places. So that's when I started to offer sound experiences in art spaces, cultural institutions, in offices, in boardrooms, and just kind of bringing it to the people instead of kind of making the people come to it.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious to know the skepticism that people have is real. A lot of people, I think, have that roadblock a little bit because these kind of things take time to see results, and we're so used to this quick uh, result driven world that we live in that people want it quick and fast. I would love to hear what kind of benefits you felt that kept you going when once you started kind of adopting meditation and mindfulness and understanding the connection between your mind and body.
I agree with you 100% that there is such a strong intense desire to have everything fast and now. And there are certain things that just don't work like that, that are cumulative. And in this age when we can ask our devices a question and have, 1,000 answers, it kind of can give us a false sense of knowing something.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read something given back to you by the computer, it's not a knowing, right? And so it has to come from this cumulative effort. There's an inner knowing and an inner wisdom that I think maybe not enough people are tapping into because of exactly what you're saying. It takes time, and it takes commitment, and it doesn't have to be hard. And this is what many of my teachers have said to me that I share with my students is it really has to be something that's accessible to you so that you can integrate it into your life, so that you do it. Because that's the thing about these types of practices is if you don't do it, then they don't work. And
Yeah.
it seems like such a silly thing to say, but and then that's why people often give the example of like working out, right? If you want to be fit or you want to build muscle or you want to lose weight, you don't just go to the gym one time and then you're done.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle change. And so the same thing goes for emotional and mental health also. We can't just assume that we download an app, and because the meditation app is on our phone, it's affecting us. you
Yeah.
know, you have to show up and do your part and participate.
What are some of these benefits that people can see by practicing um, sound bathing and healing?
I think the thing that for me that I witness in other people in the effects and benefits of sound baths is the effects can be almost immediate. That after one experience, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, people are able to kind of taste, what a meditative state might feel like, and then they say, wow, I never felt that before, or I was somewhere else. I didn't feel any pain in my body for a few minutes, or I saw colors, or whatever it is that people experience when they're in that liminal place. They can have a sense of what it is and how it feels, so that they can say, oh, okay, this is why I'm going to show up again and again. Maybe after the sound bath tomorrow, I'll listen to a 5 minute recording so I can tap back in to that experience. Does that make sense? Because I kind of think about it like when you begin a meditation practice, it is kind of like digging a well almost. And so you show up and you, not that
Yeah.
who in 2023 has ever dug a well, but but you know what I'm talking about. So you go and you dig and you dig and it's dirt, and then you dig and you dig and it's dirt, and then you dig again and it's dirt. And then
Yeah.
one day, maybe after many days, you get to water. But then once you get to water, once you kind of tap in, it's kind of easier to keep it flowing. That's what I would equate. So in a sound bath, that people can kind of feel that experience of water, so that it's easier for them to show up again, you
Hmm.
know.
So my experience with meditation um, was also kind of pushed to the edge. And then you kind of realize, okay, I need to get a hold of things. And this is something that could possibly help me relax and, control my emotions a little bit so that I can kind of deal with it in a better way. Um, but I was lucky enough to see my parents and my grandparents or people around me doing meditation and yoga and those kind of things too, and see that they have seen benefits from it. Um, what are the kind of people that come to you? Are they also kind of people who reach this point where they're like, okay, I need something to help me right now? Or is it people who are just curious about meditation? Is that, I don't know what the feel for society is at this point. Like, are people more aware, or what are the kind of people that are doing sound healing?
I think it's both. I think it's a lot of people are becoming more and more curious about it. It's becoming more and more popular, mainstream. I think that really anyone on that spectrum can benefit from it, because if you have a meditative practice, or you're practicing meditation in some way, and you come to a sound bath, I feel that it can only kind of enhance your experience. And then simultaneously, if you have kind of an aversion to being still, or you feel like you've gotten to this point in your life where you have so much stress and anxiety and overwhelm that you say, all right, I need something, I'll try anything, even this weird, sound bath thing, then there are those people too, and I think that more often than not, I have a very mixed group of people in front of me. So even when I'm facilitating trainings, teaching other people how to facilitate sound experiences, I get all different types of people. People who have been moved and curious by the experience, who maybe want to facilitate. I get people who are already facilitating sound baths, but just kind of want to learn new perspectives, new ways of seeing. I get classically trained musicians. I get psychiatrists and psychologists who want another tool to add into their practice. I get school teachers. all different types of people.
Do you have any particular story of, one person or a couple of experiences where people have seen a drastic improvement in the way after a particular class or like a session with you or with sound healing or sound bathing?
Yeah, I fortunately, I have experienced a lot, and so I'm just going through like which story should I share right now? Because it really every time I am still after all these years amazed at witnessing people, the shift in people, the shift that people have, the transformation, just from start to finish of one experience, to see how the face changes, to see
Yeah.
how the muscles of the face, the eyes are more relaxed. So every time I wow, my mind is blown it's so effective, so quickly. And even going into these experiences, and I know the effectiveness still to witness it happening in another person is really powerful. um one uh One really special story is that this woman going through a cancer treatment is experiencing a lot of pain and discomfort in her body. Uh, would tell me that when listening to my recordings during her treatments, she could kind of transcend those sensations in her body, that for a moment she didn't feel pain, when listening to the sound. And so that is one effect and benefit that is really powerful to me, that it it can help to shift relationship to pain and discomfort, even if it's just for a moment, to shift the focus, away, that it can really be beneficial in recovery, from disease, from injury, um, from emotional things, anxiety and stress. Um, and what I notice, just so I can kind of touch on a lot of different stories at one time, is that when people realize how sound is impacting them all the time, like in day-to-day life, when a helicopter goes by, or a siren, an ambulance goes by, or a baby is crying, or your phone is alerting you, and how sounds really have the ability to trigger us, or soothe us, or make us happy, bring joy, or help us to go to sleep. And when people realize that power of sound, that sound has on us, and that it's happening all the time in our lives, then you can leave the sound bath and take that knowledge of your relationship to sound and how different sound affects you, and you can start to apply it to different aspects of your
Mm.
life.
A personal story from my side. My 18-month-old is a very, very light sleeper, and any little sound wakes her up right from when she was born. So now I have this white noise machine that plays in the room while she sleeps, and I'm sitting next to her with bated breath, hoping that there's no loud sound outside. So
Mm,
my sensitivity to sound now has gone through the roof. Like any little somebody sneezing, or like dishes in the kitchen or the pressure cooker in the kitchen
mm,
really has become so. And I think it's the relationship that I have with those particular sounds and her not sleeping and me
mm,
wanting her to sleep that makes me have this negative reaction now. Earlier, I wouldn't care with, like there would be sounds that would irritate my husband. He's partially sighted, so his sense of hearing is a lot more
oh,
um, stronger. And there were a lot of sounds that would irritate him, and I'm like, why is that bothering you so much? But now that I have this relationship with these sounds, it's become so loud and in my face that I don't necessarily know how to have that relationship with sound anymore. If we're talking about it
yeah.
in that sense. I don't know if it's a good thing, bad thing, how to kind of work with it, or I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, no, no. This is really good because it's personal, and I think that other people will find this helpful too. First of all, you said, is it a good thing, bad thing? And for me, I feel like neither, and both, because it's all information, and maybe you can look at it like, wow, what an amazing experience that you're going through with your daughter, and shifting your sensitivity to sound is also helping you maybe to be more empathetic to your husband and how he experiences sound. And isn't that interesting? Like that, this is how I would approach it. Like, yes, this is interesting. Also, remembering that when babies are in the womb, they're experiencing constant sound. The flow of your blood, your heartbeat, your digestive system, all of these sounds are constantly surrounding them. And this is one of the reasons why babies, need to be bounced and constant movement, and to be, soothed like that, because this is their first experience of always being in sound, of always being in movement. And then you kind of take them out and you're like, okay, be quiet. Like, wait, what? I'm like out of my safe place where there was all this movement and all of this sound. And so I think that that's a common thing for babies too, to want constant sound or constant movement to feel safe and to feel soothed. So
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. How
mhm.
can people kind of do this on a in terms of a practice? Is it something that people can do at home? I did see that you had like a little album on Spotify when I was, kind of doing my research for the podcast, and I saw that you had one called Awake, I think it was.
Mhm.
Um, is is it, can people just kind of open up one of the songs? Can I call it a song?
Mhm.
And listen to it, or is it how can somebody who's never practiced it kind of take it up?
Yes. So I have many recording, and I would call them recordings rather than songs,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a song, typically there's a little bit more structure, like a chorus and or something like that. And this is a different type of sound. And I do have lots of recordings available on the internet, and I also have a subscription on my website on saraauster.com, where I put new videos. Some of them are guided, so some of them have me speaking and guiding in and out, and some are just sound. People sometimes like that for sleep. Sometimes I guide in to the experience and then
Mm-hmm.
leave. People like that for sleep too. And I'm currently in the process of shifting all of this over to an app. So it is my desire to make these practices really available to people, so when they come to an in-person sound experience and they want to be able to continue the practice, that there are ways that they can do that on their own. I have a bunch of recordings with Audible that are available, all different lengths. And so I think if somebody's curious, recording is a good place to start. But knowing that being in person it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, apart from your website, where can people follow you and kind of follow the work that you do?
Yeah, I am Sara Auster, pretty much everywhere. I don't have any kind of like nickname or anything. So, yeah, my website is saraauster.com. On Instagram, SARAAUSTER, Sara Auster. And I share short little videos every week, and announcements about trainings and different retreat and workshop and event experiences. Um, so those are the best places.
Lovely. My last question to you is about your thoughts on where we're headed in terms of global health and wellness, and how essential are these practices for the future, keeping in mind the current um, state of the world, and how important is something like this.
Yes, there is so much suffering in the world, and there always has been. We just now, with the internet and having a world of information in our pocket, are able to access so much more suffering at any given moment. And we are not psychologically, physiologically designed to be able to receive and handle all the suffering of the world. And so we need tools like meditation, like breathing practices, like being able to connect, have some human connection, with each other for our survival. And so I see it as the growth of the popularity of these practices it's necessary, and I think that more and more people are looking to these tools as not only just to like de-stress or relax, but to cope with everything that's going on. And so yeah, I think that the more ways that people can tap into that, to have conversations that are open and vulnerable, we can support each other, through these experiences, through coming together, through practices of listening, through getting quiet and getting still. Um, that these are all ways that we can move forward, that we can access feelings of hope over despair. Right, it's like perfect that we're talking on Diwali also, because isn't it's like light over darkness, and knowledge over ignorance, and all these things like can only be accessed if we can just slow down a little bit and get quiet. um
I love that. Do you have any other final words for our listeners who are interested in living more conscious and mindful lives? That's for sure. But how can they kind of shake off the barriers that kind of keep us from doing these practices, and just to begin? Because I feel like all of us, or at least people listening into this podcast, have the right intentions of wanting to do this more for themselves and for living more fuller and mindful lives. But sometimes life comes in the way and you don't know how to begin. Do you have any advice for us to kind of uh, use these practices, or to kind of have it in our schedule for the day?
yes, and it's going to be very easy to remember, because it's the three E's. So I would say effort, ease, and every day. So the effort part is, you have to show up. You have to. Like, you can't just expect like it's just going to happen. You have to show up. But the ease, I would say, is you setting a timer on your phone for 1 minute right when you get up, and just sit on the edge of your bed with your eyes closed and focus on your breath. It can be easy. It doesn't have to be a big deal. You don't have to have a special cushion or place, or it can be easy. But then every day, because it's cumulative, because in
Mm-hmm.
a week you might say, I really like that minute when I wake up and I focus on my breath. I think I want to make it 2 minutes. I think I want to wake up like 10 minutes earlier so I can have 5 minutes. And you start to kind of carve out a little bit of a bigger window in your day, because you're making it a priority. So I think sometimes people make it harder than it needs to be, and that becomes overwhelming, and then you can't stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
So the effort is in just showing up. because it's as simple as that. Keep it easy enough that you can stick with it every day.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having this conversation with us today. I am very excited for our listeners to kind of listen in and explore the idea of sound bathing. It sounds so exciting. And I personally listened to one today and I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm definitely going to include it in my practice as and when, I feel like it. Um, but thank you so much for having this conversation with us.
Thank you so much.